Alright, guys, so today I'm going to be talking about affirmative action, what it is, some history behind it, discussions about it, pros, cons, and then, where we're at now with it. So, start off with affirmative action. It is the way that it was making sure that universities and workplaces gave everybody the same chance, the same opportunities, so that, included different races, genders, whatever it may be. And this was first introduced by President Kennedy in 1961. And it was a method of redressing, is what they called it, discrimination that had persisted in spite of civil rights laws and constitutional guarantees. So they basically, when these civil rights laws were being pushed in, older times, they didn't exactly do what they said they would do. So they said, okay, yeah, of course. Now, black people or Mexicans, Latinos can work wherever they want, but they weren't actually hiring these people. And or let's say females can now join the workforce, but they were not actually hiring them. So this was a way for them to say, we're going to make sure that actually goes into play. So this has been in the works for a long time. This has been going on for a long time. Um, so this is a method of, like I said, of redressing discrimination that had persisted in spite of civil rights laws. And it was developed and enforced for the first time by President Johnson. And on December 13th, that's kind of where we're getting close to now, 2000, in Gratz versus Bollinger, a federal judge ruled that the use of race as a factor in admissions at the University of Michigan was constitutional. So the gist of why they supported this, they said their argument was as follows. Just as preference is granted to children of alumni, scholarship athletes, and other groups for reasons deemed beneficial to the university, so too does the affirmative action program serve a compelling interest by providing educational benefits derived from a diverse student body. So they were looking at it as, okay, if we're going to have people that are big names and their children, we want them to come to our school, or we, have favorites that we are going to make sure to get into the school. And then we can do the same for people who are, minorities. We can do that. It's on the flip, So we either get the kids who have a competitive advantage or an edge, they're gonna get in also, but also the kids who really don't have that. We're gonna do both. We're trying to level the playing field here is what they would describe it as. So according to ACLU.org, it said that many Americans feel that the time for affirmative action is over. They said opportunities for women and people of color have expanded. Many believe that the unequal conditions that once justified affirmative action no longer exist. But this is not true. Um, Millions of Americans continue to experience race and gender barriers in education, contracting, and unemployment. Existing laws help to prevent the discrimination on the basis of gender, but they alone are not enough to create equal opportunities for every American. So, you know, they tried to, have everybody come in, but that doesn't do it. Those, like I said, those managers and stuff, some of them really don't want to hire, um, let's say, a female that they think that's not going to work as hard as a male or in a workforce. And these affirmative actions kind of go into play so they can say, you're going to hire these people. You have to have a diverse workforce. In the long term, it helps everybody. So this was mainly for workplaces or universities that had like no diversity. Many of these places implemented affirmative action in order to make sure that every kid was receiving the same opportunities. So we're looking to look at some pros and cons here and see, what's good, what's bad. So in the pros, we're going to go, this is a good idea because this was probably the only option that many minorities had, and this was their way out of a low-income area. Affirmative action helps ensure equal access to opportunities and brings our nation closer to the ideal of giving everybody a fair chance. That's what it's about. Let's make sure that everybody receives a fair chance. So if we're looking at it like this, there's a kid who, went to the best schools and has the best looking resumes, and man, he's looking good for the job. And you got a kid who works just as hard, he's just as intelligent, but he didn't receive that. He doesn't have those accolades. He's probably not going to get that job or the one after that he really wants. But It's not an intelligence thing. It doesn't make him any smarter. Doesn't mean that that kid's not as smart. It just means the other kid had different opportunities, and he went with them, and it obviously paid off. But affirmative action, what that does is take a step back, and it tries to level that playing field so both kids can get into that school, get that job, and have an equal opportunity. But on the flip side, there are kids who have been working for the same opportunity for a long time. They've done the extra tutoring, special after-school programs, so they could have that extra edge. They would even, so they could get into the school of their dreams. And because of their race, they were not denied admission. I mean, they were not accepted. So some kids who were not as qualified, maybe not didn't want it that bad, I would say, they were allowed in because maybe they were a minority or as black, Latino, whatever it may be. So then affirmative action flips on itself. Then it just did the exact opposite of what it was supposed to be doing. So a lot of controversy is that a student that is more qualified could be overlooked because of his or her gender or race. And this is applicable for what would happen if we ended it as well. So what would happen if we completely got rid of affirmative action and started where we were? Okay, let's end it. Let's be done with affirmative action. Now we're looking at only the kids with the best schools, get the best looking resumes, get the job. And a kid from a low income area that is as intelligent but doesn't have the same accolades, he would never receive that same opportunity. So it's a big controversy, but because they call it less qualified people leapfrog because of over non-minorities, and they say that's a way of just sweeping that problem under the carpet. They say by just allowing more black people in makes it seem like everybody has the same opportunity, but they're not looking at the overall problem. Why don't these kids have the education, the accolades that they need? Why aren't they, raised in, schools that have those chances for them? Instead, they're just going to say, we're going to let them in, and then we're not going to worry about it anymore. We let them in. What's the big deal? So it's really hard to decide which is good, to get rid of it or apply it. And this is Obama on affirmative action, since, this is what this class is mainly about, and I wanted to look into what he thought about it. So it's a direct quote from an interview that he did on YouTube. It was Obama on affirmative action, I believe, was the name of the YouTube video. And he said, "I believe that every kid from the time they're born should be receiving good nutrition, good education, and is succeeding in K through 12. And we're opening opportunities for all young people. Because when everybody's got a level playing field, everybody's competing, and we have dealt with some of the legacies of discrimination that have resulted in substandard schools or extreme poverty in some communities, then affirmative action ends up being an afterthought." So he says, we can get rid of it and be done with it, but we have to get rid of older legacies of discrimination that have allowed these communities to crumble and the schools to fail. So once we can level that playing field, then affirmative action can be done with. So the long-term idea for affirmative action, according to Yale.edu, is that by promoting interactions across people of different groups, stereotypes against minority groups will decrease, and thus, in the long run, so will discrimination. This is what they hope for. So they're hoping that you mix a bunch of different people together and that they will, interact, get to know each other, and grow together, and see that, they're not different because of their race doesn't differentiate them. It's, they're different skills that, that we actually use. It's not a gender thing or anything like that. So this is what they hope for. They said a good example would be, let's say they gave a kid opportunities that applied affirmative action. So let's say we had a company and we applied it. We gave this student a chance because, he was a minority. Well, the hope for us is that he will grow within the company, and he will climb the ladder. He gets a better job. He's educated, and he also spreads that within his community. This will be the ultimate end game. So overall, this is kind of what they're trying to achieve with affirmative action, is to mix different groups together and give them all a different shot. But still, it's hard because some people work a lot harder. Some people, maybe didn't work as hard, or some people got skipped, and it's pretty touchy. So that's affirmative action for you guys. Just want to give you guys, a little information video on that. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good night.